The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. You are tuned into Inspire FM 105.1 FM. It's Friday, 5th of May, and the time has now just gone 10 o'clock. Welcome to Mother's Planet, a show where there is always something to talk about in a productive and beneficial way. I'm your host, Neelam, and in today's show, you'll be needing a pen and paper for sure, as I will be sharing some tasty recipes and some simple life hacks that will be useful for you to use in your everyday life. Now, firstly, listeners, I just want to remind the listeners that today's show is a pre-record, so unfortunately, I will not be able to take in any questions, but you can post up any that you do have on the Inspire FM Facebook page, which will be running as an audio this morning. So I hope you are able to connect to that. Inshallah, the show should be running live as normal via the Facebook page. So any comments or any questions that you do have around today's topic, please do share it on there. Listeners, I hope you've all had a lovely week and enjoyed the sunshine. I recall last Friday in my show asking you all to pray for a good weekend so that I could get into my garden and start gardening. Alhamdulillah, we did have the sunshine and it was actually quite a nice weekend. It felt, dare I say it, a bit warm over Saturday. I found it quite warm actually, which is amazing for my washing because I love having washing dry outside. Typical mummy thing to like, but yes, I do like that. And I was able to get my washing out and dried, and the uniform was all done and dusted with by on Saturday, so that was great. I did, as I hoped, manage to tackle some gardening, but it was all just clearing out plant pots that had just died, and I just emptied all my plant pots and just de-weeded some of the bushes that we had in the garden. So I'm hoping for this long weekend that we do have, the sun stays and we still have sunshine. And I'm hoping that this weekend I can actually now start potting some flowers and actually finally get to mow my lawn that's forever trying to grow in all sorts of ways. Actually, alhamdulillah, considering the winter that we've had, it's not been too bad. It's still patchy, but I can work on that. The grass is green. I think that's the main thing. So yes, I'm hoping to get gardening over this weekend. It's been quite a strange month, May. We've had quite a few bank holidays, added bank holidays, well, only the one, which is for the King's coronation, which is taking place on Saturday and will be rolled over on Monday as a public bank holiday for us all. So I'm actually slowly beginning to adjust to the 4-day working week and 3-day weekend. Don't know how you all feel about that, but I am actually beginning to like it. I quite like having that extended weekend and not panicking on Sunday that it's school the next day or work the next day and everything's going to be hustle bustle. It's quite nice to have the week start from Tuesday. I'm sure many of you would agree that this way of weeks that we've had, this way of the 4-day week and 3-day weekend, working week and 3-day weekend is actually been quite beneficial. I don't know if any of you found it as nice and comfortable as I have found it. Yeah, I do feel a bit more relaxed, and I do find that it's a bit more chilled, not panicking on Sunday night. So again, listeners, just a reminder that today's show is a pre-record, but you can connect through the airwaves at Inspire FM or connect through TuneIn via the Inspire FM webpage or app, which can be downloaded onto your smartphones, and you can listen to the show from wherever you are. We should also be live as an audio on the Facebook page, where you must like the show and you can leave back any comments on today's topic. Now, in today's show, I wanted to share some recipes that I had actually rustled up during Ramadan, but I found in Ramadan I got a bit more creative, and I was looking at a bit more simple and simplified dishes. And I did find that my recipe book was building up. So I thought I'd hold off and take a handful of a few of the recipes, my favorite recipes, and the keyword simple recipes, and share it with you all today. Now, I know simple recipes is key because being a busy mum myself, I know the concept of simple is very much favored. So I'm hoping, inshallah, the recipes that I share with you this morning will be simple and something that you can all follow and perhaps try over the weekend. So the first one, which I know is a popular dish, especially around Ramadan, and it's everyone's favorite to have at iftar time. But I have a bit of a tweak and a different way. And there's several ways of making this recipe, but the way I like making it is simple. And I have a different topping that I use on mine. So it's a family favorite over Ramadan, especially we liked it as a starter. I think the combination of yogurt and chickpeas and the salad was really refreshing, and it was quite a perfect palate pleaser was the word that I wanted to use for that. So it's jannah jat. Jannah jat can be made in various ways, having various things. Some people actually put fruit and savory mixed together in the jannah jat, or they just keep it savory. I've kept mine quite savory, like I've not added any fruit in this. But again, with any of the recipes that I share, you can tweak and add things of your own that you feel might enhance the recipe a bit more or be liked by your family. So the ingredients that you're going to need for this recipe will be a tin of cooked chickpeas, a tin of new potatoes. These are small cooked potatoes, tamarind sauce, one onion and one tomato, half a cucumber and then cut into cubes, chunky cubes, 2 to 3 fresh green chilies, 2 heaped tablespoons of mint sauce, a tablespoon of garam masala, ground pepper, and salt to taste, and 2 cloves of garlic, 3 to 4 heaped spoons of yogurt. Now, this yogurt, I tend to go for quite thick yogurt here, so I will always say to anyone that I'm sharing this recipe with is to use Greek yogurt because it's quite thick and has that creamy texture. It sits well on top of the jannah jat, so it's quite nice. And last but not least, salted nachos or tortillas that you can put on as a dressing. So first things first, you drain and rinse the chickpeas, then leave that to a side in a bowl. In a food processor or using a knife, finely chop the tomato, onion, garlic, green chilies, and cucumber. Chop the cucumber into chunks. Don't have it as a half cucumber. I do use a small mini chopper food processor that I have, where I just set it on finely chop, and it chops up all of that for me. And once that's done, you get like a minced mixed salad, and that's quite nice. So I then add this to the chickpeas, rinse and drain the potatoes, then chop these by hand into chunks. Add this to the mixture where you have the minced salad and the chickpeas. Then finally add your mint sauce, salt, pepper, garam masala, and give it all a good stir, and then lay it on a flat tray. By a flat tray, I mean like a serving dish, because you need it to have some depth to it so that you can add the layers on top. If you did a flat tray, it wouldn't have that effect. So it needs to be a fairly deep dish or tray. I used a Pyrex glass tray for mine, and that's how I presented and served it. So once you've laid your chickpea mix with the potatoes and your minced salad, cucumbers, and tomatoes, you can then add the yogurt over the top. So I've said 3 to 4 heaped spoons, so maybe do a dollop on each corner. So you've got 4 blobs and then just smooth it out over the top. And then this is where you bring your tamarind sauce and you can just sprinkle that over the yogurt. And then finally, to top off, get your nachos and just crush these with your hands gently. You don't want to crumb them. You just want large crushed nachos or tortillas over the top of it. Now, people use a variety of things. I've actually even seen a mix of Bombay mix go on the top of it. Some people even put Bombay mix on the top. You can get a variety of things to put on top of this, but I find that the nachos is a family favorite, and my children really like it this way. So I've stuck with the nachos, and I use that. Um, and there you go. Voila, you are ready to serve that. You can add a bit more tamarind sauce once you've added the nachos, just to give it a bit more of a decorated finish at the end, so it doesn't look so plain. Some people garnish it with coriander. Again, you can do that. Just a note, if you are serving this chana chaat a bit later and not straight away, I would leave the nachos out until you're ready to serve. So do the chana mix, put your layer of the yogurt on top, and you can even squirt your tamarind over the top of the yogurt. And just before you're about to serve it, I would then do the nachos. What does tend to happen is the yogurt absorbs the nachos, and they can then not have that crispy texture to them. So I would advise that you hold off the nachos until a bit later, especially at the time of serving it. And then once you do serve it, it'll have that crispy texture. So that's my first recipe there. Chana chaat, nice and simple. We're hoping to get some nice sunny days. It's a real summer dish, and a good starter at the table. Or even if you're just having afternoon tea and you've got friends around, it's quite nice just to have that put out. It's quite a refreshing dish and very filling as well because of the chickpeas and potatoes. That combo is quite filling. The next one is samosas. Now, these I know are very time consuming. So, my advice to everyone that is going to attempt this recipe is to do it in advance and freeze them, or to do it a day before you actually need them, or earlier in the day before you actually make them. I did it, I think, half an hour before the fast opened. So, I was working at turbo speed when I did them. So, it was Alhamdulillah, it turned out very nice, but it was a race against time. So I do advise that you give yourself some plenty of time to do that when you do that. And yes, nothing beats a good homemade samosa. So if you can, give yourself a weekend and make some and freeze them. It's quite handy having your own homemade samosas because whenever anyone comes around, you've got them to hand and you can use them. And Alhamdulillah, if you baste it well with oil, you can air fry them and they taste nice. You have to remember with homemade samosas or any samosas that you buy, we can air fry them because the filling inside is actually pre-cooked filling. It's not, you don't have to wait for the whole thing to cook up. It's actually cooked already. So you're just heating it up essentially. So yes, again, you can freeze and air fry. So if you don't want to deep fry. So the ingredients that you need firstly for the pastry would be plain flour. I'm going to put down 250 grams. This would roughly make, if you're making the size that I was making, about 14 small samosas it would make. If you want to go for larger, you'd probably get about 10 of that in there. You need kalonji seeds, which is also known as nigella seeds, a pinch of salt, and enough water to make a dough. And a bowl of milk, and I'd say about 15 to 20 mils set aside in a bowl, and this is to be used as glue. So this is something that you're going to need later on. For the filling, now again, the filling is entirely up to you. I know people that have cooked vegetable curries and have that left over and don't know what to do with it and make samosas and use that vegetable curry as a filling. Potatoes and spinach as a filling. You've got cooked mince. people use minced curry as a filling, chicken, boneless chicken. If you that into your samosas as well. I'm sticking with vegetables in my one. It will be mixed vegetables. It is a family favorite, and my children do like vegetables. So I've stuck with a simple vegetable samosa here, and also because they are that much easier to cook, and it's not. Whenever I make any meat dishes, alhamdulillah, it gets consumed in my home. There's not really enough of it left over for me to use it in a samosa filling. So vegetables is really quick to make, so I use that. Now, I'm going to tell you how to make the samosa pastries first. So for that, you'll need to add your plain flour into a bowl, and to this, add the nigella seeds, the kalonji seeds, and the salt, and just fold that all in. Slowly add the water. My advice here would not to be, don't use hot water and don't use cold water. So you need to have like tepid warm water in doing this. And in doing that, it just kneads the dough a lot more quicker. If you have hot, then it will just make it sticky. And if you have it cold, then it just makes it too stiff. So you need to have it in between. So a nice lukey warm water. So perhaps boil the kettle, leave it to cool for a while, or use the kettle water along with cold water and get that right temperature and mix that into a ball. And I would then just coat your hands with some oil and then just rub it around the ball and cover it in the bowl with some cling film and leave that aside while you make your filling. Now, as I said earlier, you can use whatever you like for your filling here. The world is your oyster. You can actually use as a leftover curries, or you can actually make a quick curry, which is what I did. And I use the vegetables and potatoes as it's a winner in my house. Um, so to make the filling, I would just make it as a normal curry. So chop my onions up, add my crushed garlic, salt, pepper, add the vegetables in, and then add. I wouldn't add any tinned tomatoes. That's the or tomato puree. That's the sub. I don't have that in this mix. So you'd have tinned potatoes again because it's quick. It's simple. You don't have to boil any potatoes and wait for them to get to the right firmness and then cook with them. Tinned potatoes is a lifesaver. Use them, and they're healthy. So yes, you can use the tinned potatoes. Excuse me. You can use the tinned potatoes and add that to your vegetable curry mix and allow the mixture to cool. So you leave that set aside. Now take a pinch out of your dough and roll it into a small ball. So essentially what you're doing here is you're making mini rotis, mini chapatis. Um, what you need to do is the size of the ball that you pick will dictate how big your chapati is going to be. So if you like the big samosas, then the size of the ball will depend on that. So the bigger the ball, the bigger your chapati is going to be. I tend to keep them at a medium size. I just think it's a bit more um nicer for the filling. You have more filling in that than you do of pastry. So it's totally up to you how you do that, but make them into a dough and then pop it on the worktop and with a rolling pin circle this flat into a roti shape and then cut halfway along so that you have two semicircles. Now you'll be able to see your black seeds in them, which is the nigella seeds. That actually adds so much flavor to the pastry in itself, so it's really nice. Um, Once you've cut your circle into two semicircles, take one and roll it into a triangle. So in doing so, you're literally just folding them in. And this is where you would use your bowl of milk to just glue or seal the fold together so that it's going to hold. And then you have like a cone shaped pastry in your hand, and that you would then take a couple of or a heap spoon of your mixture that you've made, and you would then add that into the cone-shaped pastries, and then fold at the edges to seal that. And again, you can just dip that with some milk, brush some milk across that just to seal it. To give it a bit more of a prettier look, you can use a fork on them, and using a fork will just make it look a bit more nicer. So it will give it that nice edge. And then you just allow that to sit on a tray and continue until the dough and the mixture is complete. You can, as I said, brush with oil and air fry immediately, or you can deep fry them as they are, and or you can freeze them. Just keep making them as you go along. And when you freeze them, you don't need to baste any oil or anything on them. You would do that once you've defrosted them and taken them out the freezer and done it that way. So voila, there you go. There's some homemade samosas for you there. And it's a simple pastry mix, really nice. There's a variety of things you can use. You can buy shop bought phyllo pastries. There is also you can get hold of tortilla wraps. I've seen a lot of people make samosas with tortilla wraps. I attempted this once, but I find the tortilla, it depends what type of tortilla wrap you use. I do find that if you bake them, they can be quite dry, and if you fry them, it's too much. I like to have a couple of samosas, and if you use the tortilla wraps, it's quite filling, so you'll be satisfied with one samosa. But give it a go. It's if you don't have the time to make the dough and you just want to make some homemade samosas, tortilla wraps is the easiest thing to do. So again, you've got the circular shape, cut it in half, fold them up to meet the edges, and have that cone shape. Fill it up with whatever filling that you want, and seal this, and then deep fry or again bake. And it's very nice and it's very filling. When they are baked, it's quite nice. You can actually feel that it's quite healthy as well. So it's quite nice feeling for that. I'm conscious of time, but inshallah, I have got a few minutes to run the next recipe with you before we head over to a short break. This is one of my favorites. It's a Moroccan or French salad. Now, this I have to thank my French family for, because this was really appetizing, and alhamdulillah, it was served to us in every home that we went to, and it was just so colorful. It was just every meat, fish you could think of was in this salad, and it was just amazing. And it's made my children actually enjoy eating salad. So I did have this again as a starter, or sometimes as a side with any of the meals that I cook during Ramadan. So it's simple ingredients. You just need cucumber, sweet corn. Again, I would use tinned sweet corn, drained, avocados, tomatoes, lettuce, boiled eggs, cooked party-sized cocktail sausages, chicken slices, again, cooked chicken slices, cubed cheese blocks. This again can be a big block of cheese that you cut into small cubes yourself, which is what I did. Grated carrots, grated beetroot, chunked up celery, and a salad dressing of your choice. One of our favorites is the honey and mustard sauce. This drizzled over this French salad is absolutely amazing. The flavors in that is just so nice, and it enhances every fruit or salad in that tray. So just chop up your salad into chunks. Now, I did mention lettuce. Now, leave some of your lettuce aside, because what they do is they line the tray with the lettuce, and then they pour the salad on top, and the salad mixtures over the top, and then you would just sprinkle over your cheese cubes, the sausage, chopped up sausages, boiled eggs cut in half and scattered around the top as well, and the celery chunks as well, just scattered around. So all of that around there. And then you have your chicken slices. Now with these, you would just literally roll them up so that each end meets. So you've got like a finger size roll. And with that on the tray, you would just go around the edges. So you've lined it with lettuce, you've put your salad on top, and you've got the chicken slices around the edges, which is holding all that salad in together. And then I would leave the dressing, and that's optional for anyone that wants to add it in. And it's quite nice eating as a family out that whole tray. So yeah, that was quite a nice thing to do. Now, listeners, I've got about 10 seconds until the break enters. So we are heading over now to a short commercial break. I hope the recipes so far have given you some ideas for meals to cook over the weekend. Stay tuned for more, but for now, use this as a chance to refill your hot drinks, cold drinks, or whatever it is that you're having with me this morning, and join me after the break. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz. Listen to Inspire FM shows in your time by heading over to inspirefm.org or listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Mother's Planet. I'm your host Neelam. It's Friday, 5th of May, and the time is now just gone 10:30. Now, listen, so far in the show, I have been sharing some tasty recipes with the ingredients and the methods of how to make them. I've been sharing my favorite dishes, and I hope they have been beneficial so far to you all. Just a quick reminder again that this show is a pre-record, so unfortunately, I won't be able to take in any text or WhatsApp messages this morning. So my next favorite dish is the puff pastry pizza. Now, this has been a total game changer for me, listeners. I've realized that I'm putting it down to age. I've realized that I can't actually digest pizzas anymore, especially the very heavy based pizzas. I find them quite, it makes me feel really bloated, and I don't like the feeling I have after eating pizza anymore. So I just don't, I'm obviously not a teenager anymore. I don't enjoy pizza anymore like I did back in the days. But making pizza like this has been a total game changer in the house, and it's super quick, and it's light. You don't feel so groggy after it with when you eat a normal pizza. So I do cheat. I do use pre-made puff pastry, but it is quite simple to make your own puff pastry if you have the time. You just need to let it rise on its own for a while. So it's just a lot of kneading involved in that. Now, do check out for the ingredients in some of these puff pastries. We have quite a few that have alcohol in them. So just have a quick read of them. Some of the top brands have them. But a lot of the supermarkets sell their own versions and their own brand, and these often have no alcohol. So just keep an eye out. You might be thinking you're going for a cheap brand, but actually it's the brand that has no alcohol. So it would be the one that you should be making a purchase on. So just keep an eye out on that. I know when I've recommended this recipe to people, they've actually ended up buying the wrong rolled out puff pastry. So just make sure you're buying it like that. Puff pastry comes out in lots of forms. It can come out in a packet where you have to roll out the dough, or you can get it in actual rolls. So get the rolled out puff pastry, which has already been done for you. You'll need ketchup, tomato puree, garlic granules. This is just dried garlic. Oregano, onion, tomato, again, chicken slices, cooked chicken, cooked mince, tuna, kebabs, and a heap amount of grated cheese. Now, first off, you need to lay out the puff pastry onto a flat tray, line it with greaseproof paper. Now, this needs to be a flat tray, so just a baking tray will suffice. And keep the puff pastry in its rectangular shape. Leave it as it is. You don't need to cut it, make it round or do anything to it. Just get a fork and gently press across the pastry. So dab the fork across the pastry, um, uh, just so that when it cooks through and it cooks it out evenly. Now you need to make the tomato sauce. So leave that pastry that you've now laid on the tray aside, and now you need to make your tomato sauce that's going to go on the base of this pastry. So to make that, you'll need to get your ketchup, a good squirt of ketchup in a bowl, and a good squirt of tomato puree. Mix this together, and you can then add in your garlic granules, your oregano, and your pinch of salt and black pepper. I also add in some dried basil into this tomato sauce. Mix that all up, and then this is what you are just pasting onto the pastry. Now, the pastry itself is in a rectangular form, but you're going to work on the insides. So around the whole edge from the top, the side, and the bottom, you're leaving probably about 2 centimeters around the whole edge, and you're just filling the middle part. And the reason being is because when it cooks, the base goes heavier and the edges puff up, so you get like a nice crust around this pastry. So depending on how big you want this crust to be, that's how much space you would leave in your filling. So you can, ideal is 1 to 2 centimeters. You could probably leave less, 1.5 centimeters around every edge, and just go across and use and baste all your tomato puree down. Add your finely cut onions, sliced tomatoes, the chicken that you've used, or any topping of your choice on top. And then you can even actually add fresh spinach leaves, which I did. I need to up my iron levels, so I'm eating spinach like it's running out. So yes, I added it to this pizza, and actually it tastes quite nice. So you can even add like fresh spinach leaves, and then sprinkle over your grated cheese over the top, and bake in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. It doesn't need too long in the oven, and it can overcook, or what will happen is the cheese will burn a little bit. So you need to just keep an eye on that. So literally 15 to 20 minutes will suffice. Take that out of the oven, let it cool, cut it into squares, and serve. And it's amazing, and you will not be disappointed. So you really do need to try that out with your kids or for yourself. And if you're like myself that can't digest pizza anymore, you will definitely enjoy this and find that it's a lot more lighter, and you don't feel so stuffed and groggy after it. So give that a turn. The next one that I wanted to share is breaded halves. Now, I can't take any credit for this recipe. I haven't actually tried it myself, but my neighbor, my lovely neighbor, big shout out to Sadia, made this, and in Ramadan shared this with us for iftar, and it was a real hit. My children loved it, and she had filled it with simple potatoes, and it was lovely. It was a potato curry mix that she'd used, and she'd fill that up with that, and my kids ate it. Even my 2.5-year-old, who's a real fusspot, she loved it. She had one whole half to herself, and for me that's a huge achievement, because she is so fussy with her food and how she eats it and what she eats. But she'd had her dinner, and she was quite happy to eat that as well. So alhamdulillah, it was a real nice treat for her. So a big shout out to Sadia again for that recipe. But she shared the recipe with me, and when you've made these breaded halves, you can actually fill them with any filling of your choice. Again, it doesn't have to be a meat. It could be a vegetable curry. It could be something cold, a tuna mix, or anything like that that you want to put. Essentially, you're making like little pockets. So they are really nice. So what you will need for your ingredients is a loaf of bread. This could be white or brown. 2 to 3 eggs, and these will need to be beaten. And Yes, they'll need to be beaten, and you will then need to just baste the you'll have your eggs beaten and your breadcrumbs. Apologies, listeners, there I've gone a bit off track here. Sorry. So yes, you have your loaf of bread, which can be white or brown. You have 2 to 3 eggs, which are cracked and beaten and set aside, and you have breaded crumbs. Now, to do this, you'll need to put 2 slices of bread together, one on top of the other, and take out a rolling pin and roll them together. So you're expanding the bread a little bit. So it's quite thick when you do it, but when you roll with the rolling pin, it condenses it and merges the bread together. Then use a round, large shape cutter and cut the bread, creating that circle. Now, with all the bread that's left around that, that is what you would put into a little blitzer and crush into breadcrumbs and leave that set aside for you to use a little later in the recipe. So once you've made all your little circles of the joined up bread and your circle, and you've taken all your little crumbs and blitz that to make your breadcrumbs, leave the breadcrumbs aside. Then you take the circles, you dip this in the beaten eggs, and then you dip them in the breadcrumbs that you have made. And then you would deep fry in the oil for about 2 minutes, turning it regularly so that both sides evenly cook. The bread will puff up, so you will know that this is done. You'll take it out of the oil, place it on some tissue to drain off the excess oil. And when it's cooled down, you will cut down the middle of it to create 2 half pockets, and they'll just pop open, and you can fill it with whatever you like, with chicken and salad, a vegetable curry, and they're ready to serve. And it's really nice because if you make lots of these and just leave them on the side, it's a real good party starter. You can have it as a party starter, and it's really good. It's one that's really definitely going to be a hit with everyone, and I don't think there'll be any leftovers. I think everyone would have eaten it, so it definitely will be consumed. So give that one a go. It's a real simple recipe, and I thought it was pita bread, but because they end up looking like that because they're pockets, and so you can just make your own pockets, and when you realize that you're just using bread and doing it all yourself, and you're reusing the cut out pieces to make the crumbs. So it's great. My next one is a sweet dessert one. I haven't done many of them. I think most of my recipes today have actually been savory desserts, savories. So we need a dessert now to go with all of these. So the one that I've picked to share with you all today is the apple cake. Now, the apple cake is a family favorite, and I'm surprised by this because it's apples. Having said that, my children actually do like apples, so it's quite nice, alhamdulillah. But apples is a hit or miss. They're either too sweet, a bit bitter, or if you have too much of them, and they will have a bit of a laxative effect as well. So yes, I had a few apples that were cooking a bit too well in the bowl, and they needed a bit of TLC. So I used this recipe to give these apples a second life. So firstly, what you will need, you'll need probably about 3 apples in total. You need to peel, core, and cut these into slices. So I would do that with 2 apples. Cut the apples into slices using only 2. And the other remaining apple needs to be grated and left aside. Butter the cake tin, or again, I used a Pyrex tray, whichever you choose to use. Baste that with a little bit of butter, and then add your thinly cut apple slices. Be quite creative. Decorate the tray. I did. I decorated the tray. I just laid the apple slices. It was like a domino effect, actually. I just lay them down flat like that, and left that aside then. And then I got a bit of cinnamon actually, and just sprinkled a little bit of cinnamon over the top of those apples and left that tray aside. Now you need to make your cake mix, and it's as simple as making a normal cake. Just a few different ingredients are added into this one. Um, for the cake mix, you need to have a you'll need to have some flour, and you'll need to have some grounded almonds, and you'll need to have grounded almonds, flour, and baking soda. Yes, baking soda, and add that all in. So for that's one side. So you get your 3 eggs, and you will crack the eggs, and make sure you do this one at a time. So you get your butter and your brown sugar, mix that together. So the weights for this will be 140 grams of butter, 140 grams of sugar, and I used 180 grams of flour, and I used 2 heaped tablespoons of ground almond and 1 heaped tablespoon of cinnamon fat powder. So you would mix the butter and sugar until they are light and creamy. Once you've done that, add the eggs one at a time. So you would add an egg and then whisk it, add another egg and whisk it, and so forth. You would then fold in the self-raising flour, cinnamon powder, ground almonds, and baking soda into the cake mix. So fold that all in. You would then add in your grated apples and mix that mixture all up, and mix this by hand. You don't need to do this by a whisk or anything. So a wooden spoon, and you're just folding it all in. Pour this cake mixture over the top of the sliced apples and bake in the oven at 160 degrees for 45 minutes. It will brown over the top. It'll give it like a golden glaze, and the apples at the bottom will stay put. So when you flip the cake, you'll be able to see your apples, the decorated apples, which is really nice. And this, once it's baked in the oven and it's left to cool, cut into cubes or square blocks, and serve it with a scoop of ice cream, vanilla ice cream, fresh cream, or custard. Any of those, and it will be a hit. And it's actually quite nice when it's a little bit warm. So don't let it overcool, because when you have this cake warm with ice cream, you will go back for a second slice, and it's quite dangerous. And so the sugar that you're using is light brown sugar, so it's you only need a very little amount of it. So when you do use that, you will find that it's not the apples itself makes the cake sweet. Yeah, you can even serve it with custard. So if you do let the cake cool down and you have warm custard over the top of that, that's equally as nice as well. Now, my last recipe that I'm going to share with you is semolina pudding. Semolina pudding, which is known as halwa, is one of those ones that's a bit of a hit and miss. Some people get it right and some people don't. The technique is all in the amount of butter used, and how long you toast the semolina for. So it looks quite scary when you use chunks of butter, but once you've put the butter in and melted the butter in your pan and added in the semolina, and then you're toasting the semolina. Now you have to really be on it. You can't leave the semolina toasting for like 5 seconds, because it will just cook very quickly. So you have to evenly cook it. So you have to keep not scraping, but tossing the semolina around in the pan so that it evenly does it to all. If you don't, and some parts burn or brown quicker, it gives it a bitter taste, and when you're cooking it, it can get a bit lumpy. So it's really important that you are using your hands and toasting that semolina. Now, a tip here, which my mum told me, and I didn't know that you could do this, but once you've toasted that semolina, you can leave that to thoroughly cool down, because it's going to be very, very hot. You can leave that to thoroughly cool down, and store that in an airtight container. So whenever you want to make semolina pudding or halwa, you've actually got that horrible part of the semolina making done already, and you can just add that into your warm water and make your halwa in seconds. So that's top secret there, and I've shared it with you all. So yes, you can actually toast the semolina and store that in an airtight container and use that instead of having to go through this process that I'm going through and explaining all the time. So yes, once you have toasted your semolina and it's got that even golden brown is essentially what you're looking for, golden yellowy browny look, you'll know when you see it in the pan that this is that look. You take it off the pan and take it off the hob and leave it aside to cool. Separately, you would have had, so if you're using 1 cup of semolina, you would use 2.5 cups of water. So I would say 2.5 cups, 1 cup of water, 1 cup of semolina, 2 cups of water, and 1 cup of sugar. So in that 2 cups of water, you would have your 1 cup of sugar, and you would let that warm up in the pan, and you would then add in your semolina, and you'll see it fizz, and then just keep stirring, keep stirring, keep stirring, keep stirring. And you've got to do this until you start seeing the semolina pop. As it's popping, as it's popping, as it's popping, you're essentially, what you're doing is you're drying out all the water from the semolina. And it's important that you do that thoroughly, because when you leave it to cool, it will start thickening. So take out all that water. Otherwise, when you go back to eating it, you'll feel that wet moisture and not the dry, cakey feel that you would feel when you eat semolina. So really dry out all the water, and you'll start seeing the butter come to the surface, and you'll see like a glossy look on the semolina, and that's when you know that it's actually cooked through. And I don't add anything in my semolina. I only do my decorations at the top. I'll do desiccated coconut and crushed nuts on the top and serve it. Some people at that point, or when you've added it to the water, would have added in raisins, would have added in soaked and peeled almonds or cashew nuts. That's totally up to you. My children don't like anything in the semolina. They just like the semolina cake itself, the feeling of that cakey texture. So I tend not to add anything in that mixture. I just let that be. So there's my halwa recipe there. And yes, desiccated coconut and crushed almonds on the top, and then you can serve it that way. And semolina can be kept in the fridge for up to 3 to 4 days. So you can keep eating little bits of it. If you've made quite a lot, you can keep taking bits out of it and heating it up and eating it. It's a real good appetizer if you don't know what to eat and you want something sweet, but you want something a bit healthily sweet, because it doesn't have all the bad stuff in it, and the sugar is controlled purely through yourselves, how much you put in and how much you do on that. So that's the semolina recipe there. So I have now shared 2 desserts with you. Inshallah, they should be enough for you guys. So I hope the recipes have all been noted well, inshallah. And what I will try and do, listeners, is get these recipes typed up and posted on the Inspire FM Facebook page, along with the photos of my creations. So you can see what a lot of these dishes that I've talked about look like, and hopefully have a good go at them yourself. So do keep a lookout for that. That will be coming up over the next couple of weeks. Just so that gives me time to get the recipes written up and shared on the Facebook page. So just keep your eyes peeled out on the Inspire FM Facebook page for that. Now, I wanted to share some benefits of distilled vinegar around the house and in our everyday cooking. Now, distilled vinegar, distilled malt vinegar is one of those things I don't let run out in my house. It's been a total lifesaver for everything, and I've used it for so many different things. And it does have a distinctive smell, but it's not so much of a vinegary smell. But the smell and its benefits, the benefits outweighs the smell. So I would first I wanted to share about how you can clean out air fryers now. We've been using them lots. So just add some soapy water and a good squirt of distilled vinegar in the tray, and then heat this up for about a minute and then empty it out. This can also be done to clean out your dishwasher. So run your dishwasher on a cycle with the dishes in there, and you can squirt the distilled vinegar in halfway through. So once it's running and the water's all out, open the dishwasher and squirt it in, and you'll find that your glasses are really sparkly. So it's really good to use in the dishwasher. It's also really good to use to clean meat or soak chicken. So once you've cleaned your meat and washed it and you're just leaving the meat to soak aside, put a bit of distilled vinegar in it. Again, it just cleanses it and it makes the meat really tender. So it's really good to use there as well. You can also use it to descale kettles. So boil the kettle, let it slightly cool down, and then add a few good squirts of the distilled vinegar and leave it in the kettle for it to work. This can be left or should be left for at least a couple of hours. The best is to leave it overnight. Rinse out the kettle, and then you can use it straight away because there's no harmful chemicals in this. Now, listeners, I'm actually nearing the end of my show, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in this morning, and apologies for my stumbles. I hope the recipes have been of benefit, and I'm hoping that they'll be a part of your home this weekend, inshallah, as we embrace a nice long weekend again, and inshallah some sunshine as well, hopefully. So yes, I hope the recipes and the tip on distilled vinegar usage around the house and in our cooking is of benefit. My quote for the day is, "Food may be essential as fuel to the body, but good food is fuel for the soul." Jummah Mubarak and Friday blessings to everyone tuned in this morning. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.